Welcome back to yet another series of Suicide Awareness Month. I'm your host, Coach Jane Njogu, a transformation mindset coach, and I'm with the beautiful Joanne. Joanne, if you can say hi to everybody.
Hi, everybody.
All right. So last month we started with what is depression. We started with the basics of depression, and this month we are going now to focus on the causes or the triggers of depression. And I will let Joanne tell us one of the causes of triggers that she has in mind of depression. Over to you, Joanne.
Hi, guys. Hello. It's so nice to do the second episode of mental health awareness, and the fact that it's March and it's the month where we dwell so much on mental health and its awareness. And just to mention, as we said before on our first episode, we are not doctors or psychiatrists. We are just people who has so much interest in creating mental health awareness because we notice that it's something that is not majorly addressed, and we would like to be a part of creating that awareness. Yeah, so last time we did a bit of introduction, and this time we are going to talk about some of the causes and some of the triggers. So we're going to mention few of them so you can understand, and we're going to talk about them briefly so you can understand, and then you can see if there's anything sort of that disturbs you or your friends, and then you can help us create that awareness and talk to your friends. And the first thing and the first point that I would like to talk about, Jane, is child abuse. So when I talk about child abuse, not everybody who grows with in a lovey-dovey family. Some people are fortunate enough to grow in a family that gives them everything. Even if you do something wrong, they are okay with it. They're like, okay, baby, it's fine. Don't worry, everything is fine. Some of them do not have that, and some of them grow through a very bad childhood. They are abused, and abuse can be also, there's so many cases of molesting, and there's these homesteads where they live like a lot of family members, so your parents do not have that time to give you all the attention that they need, and in most cases they don't realize that they are not giving you the attention you don't need, so you grow with this kind of thing with you. So the moment it starts to disturb your mental health, it affects it. So when you're growing up, you grow with so much bitterness, and they don't notice, you don't notice, so you never know. Yeah, so when growing up is very important, I'll give people like an advice, pay attention to the children no matter how busy you are, so you can make sure that it's not affecting their mental health and it's not affecting them while growing up. Because I know now, when it affects you and then you see another child being experiencing the same thing, then it becomes a trigger to you. So it becomes a cause and at the same time a trigger to you. So Jane, you can tell us the second point.
It's amazing how you brought up about childhood and how it affects us as we grow up. And that drives easily to my first point of relationship strains. And apart from the childhood where we have become so busy in the modern era, we don't have time for our children. We don't have time for that. Leads me to spouses in marriages. It leads to dating life. You're dating someone, but there's no that time. There's that something. There's just strain happening. Friendship, we've had cases where people are killing themselves over friendship cases. So if these strains are there, if the marriage is not happy, maybe there's abuse happening. If the friendship, there's a lot of drama going on, you start seeing like if somebody was really vested in that relationship, there are high chances that they will start experiencing these triggers. There are high chances that they will start feeling like, you know what, I don't deserve to be in this world. You know what, if my husband is not for me, then alas, I'm done. I don't want to be in this world. I'm done. And those triggers, they start forming up in your mind. And with time, you might hear that, you know what, so and so committed suicide because the husband left, because the friend stopped being their friend, because, the dating was not going so well, it came to an end. So learning how to have how do we call it, a healthy relationship is a better way, and this comes mostly through communication. I always emphasize on the importance of communication. When we learn to communicate, Joanne, when I learn to tell you what I don't like, you will
True.
in return make sure that you don't do the things that I don't like. So you make it a safe space for me, and I make it a safe space for you, because if I commit suicide, it will affect you as well, as my friend, as my husband, as my daughter, or something,
That.
because it's
Mhm.
going to affect you in one way or another. Now, moving on to the next point.
I want to make my second point about marriages, since you talked about relationships, and I believe that marriages is widely affected. Nowadays, living with someone is always very difficult. Imagine it's two people coming together, people who don't know each other, they're trying to live with each other, and sometimes it becomes difficult. And then you also look at the society, people who are watching you. How is your marriage? How is it? you know and sometimes you're going through things in your marriage in such that you are afraid of walking out, or you're afraid if you feel something, you're afraid even to go to the doctor and explain how you feel. So people keep quiet, and then their mental health deteriorates. It becomes worse in such a way they don't even understand what is happening in their body. So I think marriages also can be very, very difficult. Also the lifestyle, also, you change your lifestyle, you go and start living in a different lifestyle, exactly as I said, with another person. Among other things, there are people who are married in compounds. You're married but you're serving everyone. Or maybe you are used to having everyone around you, and then you're married and you're only living with your spouse. Or maybe you're married and you don't have enough resources to live the kind of lifestyle you want. So most of these things becomes a cause and becomes a trigger. Or maybe there was so much expectation, you expected to have a good marriage, a perfect marriage, you had this picture of a good marriage, and you don't want to be embarrassed, you don't want to walk out, as I said. So your mental health starts becoming a problem. If this topic of marriage can be discussed, it can be wide, and I think there are some people who deals with this topic and they dig deeper, because most of us women, even men, sometimes we need someone to talk to, so we can understand ourselves. So as I said, how does it become a trigger? It becomes a trigger when you see another woman or another man experiencing the same thing that you're experiencing, or feeling the same thing. Then it triggers you. And at that moment, if you know or you're already aware, then you will seek help if you know that it's a mental health problem that you have. So people should be always be careful with these kind of things, and then pay attention to everything surrounding them, so they can understand. And always, as you say something very important: communication. Nowadays, communication is the biggest challenge when it comes to relationships and when it comes to marriages. Over to you, Jane.
It's amazing. You brought up something that I would like just to touch a little bit on it. As a mindset coach, one thing I have learned along the way at a personal level and as well as working with other people, expectations. Expectations is what they land us into depression, they land us into, stress, because the expectations when you walk in that marriage, as you were talking about marriage, when I walk in that marriage, I have certain expectations. So if these expectations are not met, then that
Yeah.
triggers something in my mind. And that goes back to what you've just mentioned again, communication. Before you walk into that marriage, have that talk. Have that talk with your spouse, have that talk with your friend. Be on the same page, because once you're on the same page, you know where to place your expectations. Now,
Exactly.
that leads me to my next point of social isolation or rejection. And you've mentioned something about you're used to being with people and then you're married, you're staying in this compound, there's no that socialization and all that. And
Mm-hmm.
one thing I know is in today's society, if we are not careful, social isolation or rejection can be a great trigger into suicide. Why do I say that? When you become rejected, negative
Yeah.
thoughts they start coming in your mind. You start having thoughts like, I am not good enough, they don't love me, I don't deserve to be in this world, who am I, why was I even born,
Yeah.
if I die right now, is there anybody who's going to mourn me? Those thoughts, and they start building up. It starts with one thought. And
Yeah.
again, I'm a mindset coach, working with people, I hear someone say, okay, it started with this thought, and then this thought, it gave birth to another thought, and then it gave birth to another thought. It becomes a series and a chain of thoughts. And they're not positive thoughts, they're negative thoughts. So you keep beating yourself up, you keep reminding yourself you're not good enough, you're not good enough. And that's why I always say, even as we bring up our children, be mindful of the words you tell these children, because
Yeah.
those words, they become imprinted in the child's mind. So if you keep telling your child, yo, you're not good enough, every time you're just negative with your child, this child will grow up feeling so rejected, feeling that nobody loves me in this world. And if we are not careful, if we don't pay attention to this person, there are high chances when they grow up, they might still be feeling that rejection coming their way. And it reaches a point where they feel like, you know what? It's about time. I don't deserve to be in this world. My own mom, my own dad, my own sister, my own brother, they don't love me. They say
Yeah.
I'm not good
Yeah.
enough. So that can be a cause or a trigger. Over to you, Joanne.
So the other thing, Jane, is poverty. Poverty is so wide. I mean, you don't have food, you don't have clothing, you cannot afford school fees, you cannot afford any kind of lifestyle that you need. Then this one becomes a major issue. This one will affect you in all ways and in all angles of your life. I mean, right now, if I think of what I don't have and what I need, but when I compare, sometimes I look at it's it's okay sometimes to look at people's life and then you compare and see, before I get myself into depression and affect my mental health, what is the other person going through? Because sometimes we put ourselves in a it's like a cocoon, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm going through a lot, I don't have this, I don't have that, but you still have a place to sleep, you're strong, you can go and hustle and do something. What about that person who is has nothing, even nothing, no opportunity, or someone who cannot walk or do anything? So sometimes what I can tell people, do not, sometimes it's overthinking, do not overthink so much. Sometimes just put your eyes out and compare so you can avoid this kind of, sometimes we bring ourselves diseases out of nothing, you know out of thinking about small things. But we do have poverty issues, and it's one of the major issues that is affecting people's life. It's the one that is getting them into depression, and it's also the one that is contributing so much and so widely to the mental health. So yeah, what we can do is, I think, if you know you can help out somewhere and you're capable, just help out someone. You might be preventing them from experiencing this kind of mental health or something. Or people just see what you have and try to, gratitude is very important. Try to be thankful for what you have so you can receive something else. It's creating a very positive mind. I know this is not good to hear, especially if you have nothing to eat at night and you're telling me be positive. That one does not make sense. But if you appreciate life and you want to live a good life, you need that mental health, good mental health, to be able to think and to be able to get ideas of how to solve your poverty, because there's nothing that is permanent in this world. Yeah, over to you, Jen, your next point.
Um, you have mentioned something that last year I did a chapter in a book where I was talking about thinking outside the box, and not just outside the box, beyond the box. And you've mentioned about being in that cocoon where we don't want to step out of our comfort zones. All you want to do is to go on social media. I check, what is Joanne up to? Oh my God, Joanne is living a good life. Why don't I have that life? Am I
Yeah.
even cursed? You start comparing yourself to other people. You forget that in social media, there are high chances things are not what we see. You know, people people
Never
never
ever.
post people never post the negative side. People
Yep.
always post the positive side, which is good because it brings warmth when you see that. But when you start beating yourself up, when you start comparing yourself to Joanne on social media, and you start doing things that you don't even know Joanne is up to, it
Yeah.
leads you to this state of, you feel like, you know what, I'm not good enough. You know what? So those negative thoughts, they start coming in your head, they start popping in and out, in and out. Eventually you find yourself in that box. To you, Joanne.
Some of the other things that I can quickly mention is like, depression. There are people who undergo depression due to various things in life, like there's a lot going in this life and life is not easy itself. So once you get depressed, of course, you affect your mental health. It's automatic. you know.
Yeah.
And other things I can talk about is like what I've seen out of experience, and maybe sometimes I've talked to people, racism and discrimination. And why I say I've seen it because, you know, I've lived in outside the country, and that was the first time when I realized, wow, discrimination and racism really exists. And this one actually it's also a major thing, because once you go somewhere and people treat you like you're not a human being, or maybe because of your color or anything, and maybe you don't get a good job because of where you come from, or you cannot even go to other places, you're not welcome to other places because of that, that one also becomes an issue, and it starts to affect your mental health slowly, slowly. And if you're living in that country, I've seen and I've witnessed people who grew out of depression and they ended up killing themselves, committing suicide. What if they had a chance to get someone to talk to, so they can talk them out of it, or at least they can create that awareness with them and tell them, you know what, these things exist, you're not the only one who is experiencing this, there is always a solution to this kind of problems. Why? You come from a country, it's a home, appreciate where you come from, because it's your home. Did you feel this way when you were there? No, you did not feel. Yeah, so there is a solution, go back there. But some people, I noticed that they do not like to go back there because maybe the situation of poverty, as I said earlier, you know, you don't want to go to the same kind of poverty. But why don't you go and struggle with that poverty and then get something out of it? You know, you would get maybe food from, there are churches and organizations that help people instead of growing into depression alone and being lonely. Because also you get this kind of loneliness when you're in those countries, you know, because the moment you're discriminated and there's a lot of racism against color and everything, or against the country that you come from, then you end up being very lonely, and you don't even have that confidence to go and talk to people normally. Why would you rather go through that than go back and try to fix the poverty that is there in your country, and then get yourself out of it and live, if you love life? Because I do know there are people who do not like life. And ending as I end, Jane, we didn't mention when we said about marriages and we said about relationships. They lead to heartbreaks, you know. At the end of the day, you leave, and that is the most. Or someone cheats, you know, the kind of, you're a woman, I'm a woman, so we have gone through this maybe, and we know how it's difficult to survive heartbreak, because it's true, we have very toxic people there, toxic women and toxic men, and then relationship, they become very, very difficult. So you guys, if you generalize all these things, you will see and find where you are, because all of us are experiencing something. But the moment you are aware of what you're going through, seek help, never be afraid. There's a lot of psychologists. If you want us to help you, you can always send us messages, and then we can try to help you and connect you with someone, because as I said, we are not doctors ourselves, but we just want to create awareness. So that's how I end my on my side, Jane.
Thank you so much for mentioning. And one thing that I would like to highlight also is drug and substance abuse. Overindulgence in drugs and substance, when you start lacking these things, it might start being a trigger. It might start causing you to feel, those feelings that you feel like, without this, I cannot exist. So as I end on my side, I would like to say that key things to remember with these triggers, if they exist, nobody is special that they don't experience these things. One way or another, each of us has something that they're going through. But how we manage this is what is very important. Make
So
sure that you look after yourself, you love yourself more to identify those things that are not working for you. Identify
yeah,
those things and get the help. There is no shame in asking for help. And that is what I always say. There is no shame in asking for help, because you are doing it for you, because you love you. So do it for you. So other than that,
exactly.
thank you so much, Joanne, for joining me today. I'll be seeing you in the next episode.
Episode, exactly.